Chapter 3784. A Good Romance. BQG 6. See the next day, Ling Han went to find Tang Yang alone. The Empress, the big black dog, and the others were all at the critical moment of breaking through to the Heaven Foundation building realm, so they didn't go out this time. Let's go. After the two left the city, they both flew on their flying tools. With their cultivation, flying tools wouldn't be slower than flying vehicles. Tang Yun'er's shuttle was more suitable for traveling through the universe, but flying on a planet might not be much faster. Tang Yang's flying tool was a sword. He stepped on it, looking very elegant. Ling Han actually had a lot of tools, but flying tools required a part of his spirit to be injected into it, and even if it was only a trace or a little bit, it would affect him. For ordinary people, this little bit of influence didn't matter at all, but Ling Han wanted to be the strongest and pursue perfection. Of course, even a little bit of influence couldn't be allowed. So, he used the chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower, but the Emperor weapon concealed itself. At least with Tang Yang's eyesight, he couldn't see any clues. Haha, most people fly on a sword, but you use a tower. You're really different, Tang Yang said with his divine sense. Ling Han smiled and also said with his divine sense, this is called different. They could only communicate with their divine sense. Otherwise, with their current speed, their voices couldn't reach each other's ears. Unlike Heavenly Sea Star, which was actually a fragment of a broken star, Moonlight Star was much larger. Thus, even though Ling Han and Tang Yang both flew at a speed 20 times faster than normal, they still flew for 7 days before arriving at their destination. This was a huge lake, surrounded by mountains. Under the sunlight, the waves were beautiful, and golden snakes danced. Ling Han took out the map and discovered to his surprise that the picture on it had changed. Moreover, it was a moving picture. It was a person circling around a golden pillar, turning 3 times to the left, 9 times to the right, and continuously repeating this process. Obviously, Tang Yang didn't lead the wrong way. The characteristic of this cold water gold was that when they reached a special place, it would show the pictures or images left in advance. It was because they found the place that the map changed. Go into the water. Tang Yang looked at Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. Go. With their cultivation, there was nothing to be afraid of, so they jumped into the water one after another. The lake water was not cold. Instead, it was warm and comfortable. Both of them dove downwards. Once they stepped onto the immortal path, they wouldn't have to worry about the problem of breathing. As long as they could absorb the power of heaven and earth, martial artists would be able to survive. After swimming for a while, a large fish suddenly swam towards them. It was over 100 feet long, and its entire body was dark green. Each scale was the size of a bowl. This fish was ferocious. It opened its mouth wide and bit towards the two of them. Its teeth were as sharp as knives. Tang Yang made his move. With a tap of his finger, a bloody hole appeared on the head of the large fish. The fish's belly was facing upwards, and it was completely dead. As soon as the big fish died, small fish appeared out of nowhere and surrounded it to eat it. In just a short while, the big fish turned into a skeleton and sank to the bottom of the lake. They continued to move forward. Not long after, a black eel swam over and arched its body from afar. Whoosh, a bolt of lightning struck over. This was a Foundation Establishment realm fish demon. This bolt of lightning was as thick as an arm, and it drew a zigzag in the air. Ling Han directly sent out a blast of baleful aura. Wang, the eel immediately fainted. Huh! Tang Yang was surprised. If Ling Han had killed the fish demon with a punch or a kick, he wouldn't have been surprised, because he knew how powerful Ling Han was. He could be said to be number 1 in the Foundation Establishment realm. However, he didn't even need to make a move to knock out a Foundation Establishment realm fish demon. This was unimaginable. I've discovered that you're really a hidden person, he said. When Ling Han heard this, he couldn't help but think of the large black dog. Presumably, if this guy was here, he would probably look at his crotch and mutter something along the lines of as expected, it's not showing. Instantly, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then you can slowly discover it, he said with a smile. The two of them continued to swim towards the bottom of the lake. The light instantly dimmed, and finally, this place became pitch black. However, There were mysterious water creatures here. Their bodies were very small, but they emitted a faint light. When there were so many of them, this lake also became hazy. It wasn't that they couldn't see their fingers if they stretched out their hands. Heh! Ling Han and Tang Yang let out sounds of surprise at the same time. They saw a white thing floating over in front of them. Very quickly, they saw clearly that it was actually a woman. She was dressed in white, and her black hair was spread out like seaweed. There was a kind of messy beauty about her. There was actually a woman floating at the bottom of such a deep lake. Was it haunted? She's injured. Ling Han swept his gaze over and saw that behind this woman, there was a faint red in the lake water. The two of them swam over. Indeed, this woman was injured, and her vital signs were still there. Ling Han extended a finger and pointed at the woman's head. A mysterious force surged in, instantly causing the woman's delicate body to tremble, and she woke up. "Who are you?" she asked using her divine sense and immediately took a defensive stance. Tang Yang's eyes involuntarily brightened. This woman was really beautiful. Her eyes were as clear as water, and her eyebrows were like a painting. There was also an indescribable temperament about her that made her appear very noble. He hurriedly said, "I'm Tang Yang," and his Ling Han. "Don't be afraid, we just saved you." The woman looked back and forth between him and Tang Yang a few times before finally nodding. "Thank you. Beauty, how did you get injured?" Tang Yang was very proactive. "Did someone injure you? Tell me, I'll help you get revenge." As the Chilean son of the Tang clan, what kind of beauty hadn't he seen before? But now, he was actually taking the initiative to court her. It was clear just how beautiful this woman was. The woman muttered to herself for a moment before saying, "I came here to hunt a type of treasure fish, but I accidentally found a golden pillar. Out of curiosity, I turned it around, but in the end, I was heavily injured and fainted. If I hadn't been saved by you, it's very likely that I would have been buried in the belly of the fish." Golden Pillar Ling Han and Tang Yang looked at each other. What a coincidence. "Where's the pillar? Can you take us there?" Tang Yang asked. Seeing that he was chatting happily with this woman, Ling Han didn't say anything and just stood there as a spectator. The woman revealed a hesitant expression. "That place is very dangerous." "It's fine. We've already heard what you said. We're already prepared," Tang Yang rushed to say. He still hadn't been blinded by the beauty, and he didn't say that he and Ling Han were actually looking for this golden pillar. "All right." The woman nodded. The three of them swam forward together. The woman had only suffered some minor injuries. It wasn't serious, and she would be fine once she woke up. The journey was relatively peaceful. Half an hour later, a huge clump of water plants appeared in front of them. "It's here." The beauty pointed at the water plants. "Oh right, beauty, what's your name?" Tang Yang asked shamelessly. The woman muttered to herself for a moment before saying, Jin Yeshua." First, she set a small goal for herself, for example, a bookmark. Reading on a phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3785. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC Jin Yeshua, what a good name, Tang Yang praised as he pushed aside the water plants and continued forward. This was a thicket of aquatic grasses that grew tall and dense. After walking for half a minute, the trio's eyes lit up as a golden pillar appeared in front of them. It was about 6 meters tall and as thick as a thigh. "Ling Han, this is it," Tang Yang said to Ling Han. "Hey, you're looking for this thing?" Jin Yeshua asked curiously. Tang Yang chuckled. "It's all thanks to you. If we had to find it ourselves, it would probably take us a few days." Vision was greatly affected at the bottom of the lake, and the golden pillar was growing in the dense water plants. It was really difficult to find. Ling Han glanced at Jin Yeshua. He was confused, but he didn't say it out loud. Tang Yang had a strong desire to show off. Although he was a young master, when he met the woman he liked, he behaved like any man in love. His IQ had seriously decreased, but his desire to show off had skyrocketed. He held the golden pillar and began to turn it. 3 to the left, 9 to the right. Suddenly, there was the sound of gears turning, and the golden pillar slowly descended until it completely disappeared. Boom, an even louder sound came, like an earthquake. No, it really seemed like an earthquake. There were strong waves in the water, causing the three of them to shake slightly. However, Ling Han and Tang Yang were both elites on the celestial path, and Jin Yeshua was not inferior either. She was shockingly also a cauldron forging cultivator, so she was not affected by the waves at all. She merely shook slightly. Ling Han did not use her eyes, but she had been observing with her divine sense. When Tang Yang turned the golden pillar, her pupils contracted slightly, and a hint of surprise appeared on her pretty face. At present, Ling Han was not sure what this surprise meant, but he was sure that the other party was not as simple as she said. She had mistakenly come here because she was fishing. Boom, 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 the earth shook violently. Hey, it seems like the bottom of the lake is rising, Tang Yang said. They were originally floating in the water, but now their feet were standing on the soil. There was a force pushing them up at a very fast speed, so they could all feel the obvious force. About 10 minutes later, with a loud splash, the three of them broke out of the water. Hiss, they looked in front of them and were shocked because there was a group of buildings in front of them. They were standing in the square of this group of buildings. At this moment, the mud was receding like water, revealing the white jade-like tiles. It wasn't the entire lake that rose up, but an area in the middle of the lake. It was as if an island had suddenly risen from the lake, and the area was quite large. What kind of historical site is this? Tang Yang murmured. The three of them walked forward. After walking past the square, a wall blocked their way. They turned to the gate and saw two words written on the signboard, Jin Residence. Jin Mansion. Ling Han and Tang Yang both looked at Jin Yeshua with strong questions in their eyes. This was the Jin Residence, and this woman's surname was Jin. Moreover, she was injured because of the golden pillar. Adding all of this together, how could Ling Han and Tang Yang not suspect that this woman was related to the Jin Residence? Jin Yeshua took a deep breath and nodded. That's right, this Jin Residence is my Jin family's ancestral land. I'm not here to catch some treasure fish, I'm here to find our ancestral land. It's fine, who doesn't have a bit of vigilance? Tang Yang smiled and tried to smooth things over. No wonder you could find this place. We followed the map and searched for a long time. Jin Yeshua smiled bitterly. In order to find this ancestral land, the family has searched generation after generation. It was only until my generation that we finally found it, but we couldn't find it. Instead, we fainted. She paused for a moment, and then continued, when I saw you all, I was suspicious. This place is so remote, so how did you all come here? Could it be that you obtained the lost ancestral diagram of the Jin clan? So, after you all invited me, I went with the flow and brought you all here. Damn, how could things be so coincidental? They actually met the descendants of the treasure while searching for the treasure. Ling Han and Tang Yang looked at each other. What were they now? Thieves? Jin Yeshua took the initiative to say, although this is our ancestral land, it has been too many years, and I don't know anything about this place. I don't have the right to call myself the master. Speaking of which, it was because of you that I was able to see the ancestral land again. So, let's explore together and share what we find. Sure. Ling Han and Tang Yang looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Okay. Jin Yeshua's smile was like 100 flowers blooming at the same time. Tang Yang was a bit absent-minded and only came back to his senses when Ling Han nudged him. Now look again. Ling Han took out the frigid water gold because he wasn't sure if opening the door required a special method. The image on the gold had indeed changed, but it wasn't directed at the door. It seemed that entering the door didn't require any special method. Let me do it, Tang Yang said. He was very willing to show off in front of a beauty. Knowing that the door wasn't dangerous, he immediately rushed up to push it open. There was a squeaking sound, and dust fell as the door was slowly pushed open. The three of them walked in, and what appeared in front of them was a withered garden. This place must have been very beautiful in the past. The flower beds were arranged in a unique way, and there was an indescribable charm to it. Ling Han made a sound of surprise and said, "Don't move. What's wrong?" Tang Yang didn't care and stepped forward. Swoosh, a beam of light blasted towards him at an astonishing speed. Tang Yang couldn't dodge and was hit head-on, but a ball of light flashed on his body and turned into a light screen, blocking the attack. This scared Tang Yang so much that his face turned pale. He quickly retreated. Damn, I almost died. He had a life-saving treasure on him that would only automatically activate when his life was in danger. It was that treasure that had activated just now and saved his life. That attack definitely reached the level of a life core. If not for the treasure my grandfather gave me, I would have died. He was full of lingering fear. Ling Han sighed. Can't you take it easy? This guy's behavior was a bit abnormal. It seemed that when a person met the person they liked, their brain would really go haywire. It's because I didn't see any danger either, Tang Yang explained. From the image on the frigid water gold, they were far from that place, so he was a bit careless. Ling Han said seriously, there's a formation set up here. If you don't think of a way to break it or don't follow the rules, you'll be attacked. Why don't you calculate how many more times that treasure can be used? Tang Yang smiled. Although there was no limit to the number of times he could use the treasure, he could only activate a shield every minute. So if there were a lot of attacks, he definitely wouldn't be able to block it. Hey, you're also a formation master. He suddenly changed the topic. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3786. BQG 6, CC BQG 6. Cecil Ling Han smiled. Why? Can't I become an array master? Jin Yeshua was a little puzzled. A cast tripod realm cultivator bringing a foundation establishment realm cultivator into the historical site must be for his array skills. Otherwise, why would he bring a burden? It was not like an elder bringing a junior to gain experience. But looking at Tang Yang's expression, it seemed that he did not know that Ling Han was an array master, which was strange. Nonsense. Tang Yang quickly said, did you forget that you are an alchemy master? Did you forget that you just won the title of the strongest foundation establishment realm cultivator at Her Majesty's birthday? Now you are telling me that you also know array skills? Damn, are you trying to scare me to death? Is it true? Jin Yeshua's mouth was half open, and she looked at Ling Han. This time, she looked at him very seriously. Although she had observed Ling Han before, he was just a foundation establishment realm cultivator. Why would she spend so much effort? She just took a look to confirm his cultivation level and naturally did not pay attention to him anymore. She really could not tell that such a young man actually cultivated 3 things at the same time. Ling Han smiled slightly. It's not a bad thing to have more skills. It's not wrong to learn more. Tang Yang instantly suffered a huge blow. He wasn't old, but he relied on his own talent and the support of his clan to rush to the cast tripod realm. He had always been complacent about this achievement, as it was an incredible achievement. But compared to Ling Han, yes, he was not as good as him in martial art, but first, his potential was not inferior. Second, he dabbled in alchemy and array skills at the same time, and he even refined the foundation establishment elixir. In the future, his achievements in alchemy were limitless. Cultivating both alchemy and martial arts was already amazing enough, but now he had another identity, and he was actually an array master. Damn it. It was really frustrating to compare oneself with others. Sigh. He sighed. I also want to learn more skills, but I don't have the time. Okay, don't moan without reason. I will break the array first. Ling Han said, come, you continue forward and activate the array. I need to observe more before I can make a judgment. Tang Yang's face suddenly darkened. You want me to be beaten? Then I will go. Ling Han smiled. Tang Yang waved his hand. Forget it. I'll do it. He had secret treasures that could protect his life, but did Ling Han have any? He walked forward again. Suddenly, a ray of light shot over. This time, it was clear that it had turned into a sword of light. Tang Yang couldn't block it at all. Peng, he was struck head-on, and then he hurriedly retreated. Ling Han took in all of this. Then, he closed his eyes. His eyeballs were trembling slightly. This was him making high-speed deductions. What he saw was not only the attack of the light sword, but also the changes in the entire garden. Based on the arrangement of the flowerbed, I can conclude that this is the Luo Wang Whitebird formation. Ling Han said in his heart. He then said, Brother Tang, go out again. This time, stand on the second brick in the third row. Left or right? Tang Yang asked. There were 4 bricks in that row. Left. Ling Han really wanted to kick him. Did you count from right to left? Tang Yang didn't dare to act rashly. After a minute, the secret treasure could be activated again. He jumped out again and landed on the stone that Ling Han had mentioned. Huh! No light sword shot out. He was stunned at first, and then he was overjoyed. Ling Han, you really broke the formation. Don't be happy too early. There are many changes to the King Luo's white bird formation. I need to observe it a few more times before I can be sure exactly which kind of change it is, Ling Han said calmly, not cheering or jumping for joy. Okay. Tang Yang nodded. He hadn't been attacked yet, which meant that Ling Han's strength in formations was extraordinary. Jin Yeshua also saw this, and her beautiful eyes lit up. She seemed to be thinking about something. Tang Yang walked forward again. Xiao, the light sword shot over again. After he was hit, he hurriedly retreated to a safe place. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, the third brick in the 5th row in front of you. All right. Tang Yang jumped out and landed on the brick that Ling Han had mentioned. As expected, he wasn't attacked. Yes. He gave Ling Han a thumbs up. Ling Han shook his head. Stop fooling around. Keep walking. I still have to get beaten up. Tang Yang was a little depressed. Ling Han just chuckled and ignored him. Tang Yang was just joking. He took another step forward. No attack came. Tang Yang had already prepared to retreat, but he never would have thought that the brick he had randomly chosen was actually a safe zone. Ling Han was speechless. This guy's luck was really good. Haha, I'm really blessed. Tang Yang laughed. Yes. Ling Han also laughed and started walking forward. He turned his head and said to Jin Yeshua, follow the brick I've stepped on. Okay. Jin Yeshua nodded. Although she was a descendant of the Jin clan, she lacked understanding of this place. After 2 steps, Ling Han was already standing behind Tang Yang. At this time, he had completely mastered this formation. It was impossible to break it, but it was not a problem to find a safe route from it. He jumped again and landed on the 4th brick. This made Tang Yang's heart jump. Ling Han didn't have a secret treasure. If he was hit by that light, a raw core level attack would be enough to kill him hundreds of times. Fortunately, there was no light slash. Tang Yang heaved a sigh of relief and found that his palms were actually a little sweaty. Swoosh. Ling Han jumped again and landed on the 5th brick. Follow me, he said. Tang Yang and Jin Yeshua quickly followed him. Their movements were neat and uniform. They jumped together. One landed behind Ling Han, and the other behind Jin Yeshua. Tang Yang let Jin Yeshua go first while he brought up the rear. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, several figures flew across the sky and landed on the square outside. Hey, someone actually activated the mechanism and made the ancient site reappear. Who are you from the ancient ghost clan? There were 5 people in the group, 3 men and 2 women. They looked very young, but each of them had cultivation at the cauldron forging realm and exuded a powerful aura. What ancient ghost clan? Tang Yang and Jin Yeshua were confused, but Ling Han had a flash of inspiration. The blood-sucking true lord he had killed had most likely fought with someone for the treasure map. In the end, he had lost a leg and suffered a serious injury to his chest. His combat strength had plummeted, and he actually had to control others to bring his blood to heal. Then, could his competitors have also seen the treasure map? That would at least be a spirit transformation true lord. With the memory of such an expert, it should not be difficult for them to have a photographic memory. Perhaps that expert had also been seriously injured, so he sent his juniors over. Anyway, he remembered where it was. Of course, this was only Ling Han's guess. How dare you disrespect Lord? Ling Han decided to bluff and immediately shouted. It was more refreshing to read on the phone. Chapter 3788. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Cece, there was nothing much to say. They were definitely going to the cultivation library. Jin Yeshua led the way, and they chose to turn left. They had to pass a bamboo garden first. It had been so long, and it had been buried at the bottom of the lake, but the bamboo garden was still green. "Hey, this is 9-ringed bamboo," Tang Yang exclaimed. "This can be made into a 3-star treasure. This thing takes 10,000 years to grow, and it can wait for people to die." He continued, "Growing to 90,000 years is the limit. There are many old bamboos that have died of old age, and they are all more than 90,000 years old. What a waste. It needs to be soaked in boundless water for 3 years, and it will not rot. It can last 1,000,000 years. What a waste, what a waste." He was heartbroken. Ling Han took a look, and then chopped up a few stalks of 9-ringed bamboo that had reached a certain age. He gave each of them 2 stalks, and said with a smile, "The bamboo planted on the walkway is all 9-ringed bamboo, and is used for ornamental purposes. Miss Jin, your ancestors must have been incredibly glorious." Jin Yeshue nodded. "They are indeed quite famous. I'm looking forward to it even more." Tang Yang rubbed his hands. "There won't be a sage technique, will there?" "Of course not." Jin Yeshue shook her head. "The Jin family has never produced a sage. I'm sorry to disappoint you." "How could that be?" Tang Yang quickly said. "There wasn't before, but there will be in the future." Jin Yeshue was stunned for a moment, and then realized that he was talking about her. She couldn't help but smile sweetly. Suddenly, the iceberg was unsealed, and she was infinitely charming. Tang Yang stared at her. This guy who forgot his friends in love. Ling Han shook his head and went straight ahead. The Jin residence was very big. After walking for a while, they arrived at the place. In front of him was a small building, and in front of the small building, there was a stone pie show guarding it. Ling Han took out the frigid water gold and looked at it. To open the door, the mechanism is behind the pie show. "I'll go open it." Tang Yang quickly ran over. But before he could reach it, he saw that the stone pie show actually came to life, opened its bloody mouth, and bit towards him. Crack! Tang Yang didn't have time to dodge and was bitten. Shapisho swayed left and right. After chewing a few times, he threw Tang Yang out. With a bang, he fell to the ground. Shapisho, on the other hand, returned to his original spot and sat down, turning back into a stone statue. F***CK. Tang Yang struggled to crawl up. Just now, the secret treasure on his body had already been activated, but it was completely useless. It had been bitten through by Shapisho, but strangely, he had actually only suffered a slight injury. Logically speaking, Tang Yang was no different from a small fish if he could even shatter a life core level shield with a single bite. He would become a rotten fish with a single bite. Therefore, it was not that Tang Yang was lucky, but that Shapisho had no intention of killing him. "What should we do?" Tang Yang was dumbfounded. "Let's go together. You're in charge of attracting its attention, and I'll open the mechanism," Ling Han said. Tang Yang's face was full of black lines. "Why can't I be the one to open the mechanism?" "Because you're a good match for it." Ling Han smiled. "Phut, you're the one who's a good match." Tang Yang cursed in his heart, but his realm was higher than Ling Han's, and he also had a secret treasure to protect him. No matter what, he was more resistant to beatings than Ling Han, so he had to go. "Come." After saying this, he immediately rushed out. Meanwhile, Shapisho also responded, suddenly standing up. "Come chase me." Tang Yang's seduction was successful, and he quickly ran. Shapisho chased, a little dazed. Ling Han also quickly jumped out, but just as he jumped out, he saw that Shapisho's body tremble, and in its original position, another one actually appeared. F***CK. This Shapisho also immediately rushed out, biting towards Ling Han. Its strength was too terrifying, and it was very likely to have reached the true self level. No matter how monstrous Ling Han was, he was still only at the foundation establishment stage. He couldn't resist at all, and was bitten and violently abused. When Shapisho had played enough, it opened its mouth and spat out. Ling Han fell to the ground. So miserable. On the other side, the one chasing Tang Yang had also completed its mission. It trotted all the way back, and then merged with the other Shapisho, becoming one again. "I say, what kind of rotten idea did you come up with?" Tang Yang came back with his hands on his waist. Ling Han spread his hands. I didn't know there would be such a change either. Fortunately, Shapishio didn't kill them, and only bit them to the point where their bodies hurt. What do we do now? Tang Yang said gloomily. Let me do it. Jin Yeshua stood out. You're not its opponent, Tang Yang hurriedly said, his flower protection attribute completely activated. I'm not going to fight it, Jin Yeshua said as she walked forward. When Shapishio woke up, she bit her finger, and blood immediately seeped out. That Shapishio's movements stopped abruptly, and it stared blankly at Jin Yeshua, as if it had turned into a stone statue again. Jin Yeshua walked over and smeared the blood on Shapishio's forehead. She then turned around and said, the ancestral blood can freeze it for about half an hour. Let's go in immediately. Tang Yang and Ling Han both nodded and went to the stone statue to turn on the mechanism. Crack, crack, crack. The door of the small building immediately opened. They entered and saw that it was full of bookshelves. Some had books, some had jade plates, and some had beast skins and stone pieces. There aren't any precious secret arts on the first floor. Let's go to the second floor, Jin Yeshua said. Ling Han and Tang Yang both nodded. Although Jin Yeshua had never been here before, she was still a member of the Jin family and would know more than them. They went up to the second floor. The layout here was similar to the one below, and there were still rows of bookshelves covered in dust. Ling Han picked up a book, but it immediately turned to dust. Too much time had passed. Tang Yang and Jin Yeshua were also looking, but without exception, ordinary books couldn't be preserved for tens of thousands of years. They would have long decayed, but this place had never been touched, so it maintained the appearance of a book, but it would shatter with a touch. What about the stone pieces and jade plates? Blood Moon 13 Palms. 1000 Transformations Fist Manual. Night Sutra. They found many excellent cultivation arts, but they were only at the true self level. There were no treasured arts at the perfected lord or sect master level. Could it be that the strongest ancestor of the Jin family was only at the true self level? If that was the case, the old monster would have died with grievances. A perfected lord spirit transformation had died for a mere treasure at the true self level. Ha. Ling Han didn't believe it. He had been secretly observing Jin Yeshua. She was a descendant of the Jin family. If there were precious treasured arts, she should know where to put them. Although Jin Yeshua didn't move and search the bookshelves like Ling Han and Tang Yang, she would look at a place every once in a while. It was very hidden. If not for the fact that Ling Han had been observing her, he definitely wouldn't have noticed it. What was there? Ling Han walked over, and his divine sense immediately discovered that Jin Yeshua looked slightly nervous. It was more refreshing to read on the phone. Chapter 3789. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC in front of Ling Han was a wall. There was nothing else. He reached out and knocked on the brick. It was a dull sound. Ling Han switched to another brick and knocked again. It was the same. He moved again. After changing more than 10 bricks, the sound changed and became a very crisp one. He smiled, but it was hollow. Tang Yang, Miss Jin, he called. Tang Yang walked over with a blank expression, but Jin Yeshua had an admiring smile. I couldn't hide it from you. Ling Han simply smiled faintly. What secret signal are you using? I don't understand it. Tang Yang looked confused. It's right that you don't understand. Ling Han pointed at the brick. Come, smash it. Jin Yeshua shook her head. Don't worry, it's not dangerous. She walked forward and slapped down. Pa, the stone shattered. She reached in again, and when she took it out, there was an iron box in her hand. Tang Yang's eyes widened. Jin Yeshua opened the box. There were 3 things inside. 2 thin books and a piece of animal skin. When Ling Han's gaze swept over the animal skin, his heart involuntarily beat. He had seen this thing once. Can I take a look first? He pointed at the animal skin. Up to you. Jin Yeshua nodded. We've already agreed that everyone will have a share of the techniques and treasured skills we obtain. Ling Han took out the animal skin and spread it out. Jin Yeshua and Tang Yang each took out a book. Hiss, the Deluo Heaven treasured skill. Tang Yang's voice trembled. He suddenly stood up and pointed at Jin Yeshua. You're a descendant of the Hongfeng dynasty's Jin clan? That's right. Jin Yeshua nodded proudly. There was an indescribable air of nobility about her. Ling Han's heart trembled. He had guessed correctly. What was recorded on this animal skin was the spirit diagram of destruction. He had only mastered a part of it, and this was another part. Ling Han didn't know if the two together could be complete because he hadn't started cultivating yet. He suppressed his excitement and said, "What Hongfeng dynasty? Let me say it." Jin Yeshua pressed her hand at Tang Yang. Her aura was so strong that Tang Yang couldn't help but shut his mouth. Before the Azure Dragon dynasty, it was the Hongfeng dynasty that ruled the Moonlight Planet and the 36 planets. However, about 60,000 years ago, the emperor of the Hongfeng dynasty, Jin Yu, failed to become a saint and died. The Meng family, who were supposed to be loyal and assist the new emperor, suddenly betrayed the Jin family and slaughtered everyone in the Jin family. Fortunately, the late emperor of the Jin family had made arrangements just in case. He left a branch of his bloodline in the outside world, and no one knew about it. That's how we escaped this disaster. However, in order to prevent the Meng clan from finding the ancestral land of the Jin clan, the ancestors would rather die and cover up the ancestral land. Because of this, the branch of the Jin clan couldn't find the ancestral land. Generation after generation, they hid their hatred for the Meng clan and searched for the whereabouts of the ancestral land. Ling Han was surprised. He didn't expect Jin Yeshua to have such a great background. Jin Yeshua looked at Tang Yang. "Young lord, do you still dare to ask for the paragon technique here? You know who I am." Tang Yang was a little surprised. "Who hasn't heard of you?" Jin Yeshua said indifferently. Tang Yang couldn't help but frown. As soon as the Meng clan rose to power, they immediately began to whitewash themselves. After tens of thousands of years, ordinary people knew that there was only one Meng clan in the Moonlight Planet. However, the truth was still passed down among some major forces. There were even some forces loyal to the Jin clan. They were waiting for the descendants of the Jin clan to appear one day and overthrow the Meng clan. If he took the Jin clan's inheritance, it would be equivalent to standing on the opposite side of the Meng clan unless he handed over the things here immediately. This included Jin Yeshua. This made him feel conflicted. Jin Yeshua was the first woman who had moved his heart, and the Jin clan's ancestor was actually qualified to become a saint. This showed how powerful the Jin clan's inheritance was. The Meng clan had never stopped searching for the Jin clan. First, they wanted to kill them all, and second, they wanted the Jin clan's paragon technique. Would Tang Yang be willing to give up the opportunity to become a saint? Moreover, even if he handed it over, would the Meng clan believe that he didn't have a backup? Even if it was just to be safe, they would probably kill him. Then Tang Yang only had one choice, and that was to remain silent and never reveal a single secret. With such a vigilant heart, would he still be loyal to the Meng clan? What a huge lightning bolt! Tang Yang sighed. If Jin Yeshua had told him earlier that this was the Hongfeng dynasty's ancestral land, he could have immediately gone back to report and not set foot here. But now, he could only go all the way. Jin Yeshua smiled faintly. "You can cultivate the Jin clan's paragon technique. How can you be so picky?" "That's true." Tang Yang smiled bitterly. This was at least a venerable level paragon technique, and there was still a chance for it to reach the saint level in the future. Ling Han had already finished reading the contents of the animal skin. Naturally, he didn't have time to cultivate it. He just memorized the extremely complicated symbols that were constantly changing after being integrated into his mind, and then put it back into the box. "First, memorize the contents of the paragon technique," Jin Yeshua said. "I'll take the original copy. You don't mind, right?" "We don't mind," Ling Han and Tang Yang both said. This was a secret technique passed down from their ancestors, and it was already very generous of them to let them study it. After Tang Yang and Jin Yeshua finished reading the books in their hands, the three of them exchanged and continued to read. The paragon technique in Ling Han's hands was the Deluo Heaven Treasure technique. This was a secret technique, and when used, its power was infinite. Back then, the The Jin clan had used the celestial scripture and the Deluo heaven treasure technique to sweep across the land and achieve imperial hegemony. This was the true foundation of the Jin clan. Hey, what is this? Why can't I understand it at all? Jin Yeshua held the animal skin, her face full of confusion. Was there something wrong with her brain? Why did the symbols on the animal skin look like scribbles? Let me have a look. Tang Yang leaned over and was instantly dumbfounded. What was this, scribbles? Ling Han, can you understand it? He asked Ling Han. Yes, this is a spirit map. Ling Han didn't hide it. In any case, whether he knew about spirit maps or not was one thing, but whether he could learn it was another. He had only mastered it because of the thousands of planes in his body. It was very strange. Really? Tang Yang looked at the animal skin again, but still couldn't see anything. This was definitely scribbles. How could it be a spirit map? But if it wasn't a high-grade spirit map, why would the Jin clan's ancestor keep it in the box with the two great treasure techniques? The treasure was right in front of him, but he could only stare at it. There was nothing more sorrowful than this in the world. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3790. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC, can you understand it? Tang Yang did not give up, and asked Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. Almost. Tang Yang was shocked. Why could Ling Han understand it but he couldn't? Was there such a big gap between their martial art talent and comprehension ability? The point was, this was just a bunch of scribbles. Did it have anything to do with comprehension? Jin Yeshua also showed a look of doubt, thinking that Ling Han was bragging. Ling Han didn't explain and just flipped through the Deluo Heaven Precious technique in his hand. Although this precious technique couldn't be compared with the Demon Monkey Fist, it was barely comparable to the 3 styles of the War God and could enrich Ling Han's techniques. He quickly finished flipping through the book and the content of the book had been completely memorized. It automatically evolved in his mind. The 3 of them exchanged again and Ling Han got the celestial scripture. He flipped through it. This was a technique created by a master of the 4 extreme realms, but it was limited to the 4 extreme realms. Unless someone from the Jin family entered the Sage realm and continued to write this technique, they wouldn't be able to get the Sage manual. When it came to the foundation establishment level, the celestial scripture was definitely not as good as the ancient Yang scripture, but Ling Han only got the foundation establishment manual. Now he wasn't far from casting a cauldron, but he obviously couldn't go back to Heavenly Starry Sky for a while. Therefore, he couldn't get the cauldron casting manual of the ancient Yang scripture for the time being. This celestial scripture was just right for him. Besides, he could read 2 high-level techniques at the same time and learn from each other's strengths. After memorizing the celestial scripture, Ling Han put the book back into the box. Tang Yang did the same, and Jin Yeshua also put the box away. The division was complete. Jin Yeshua showed a touch of relief. After regaining the ancestral technique, the rise of the Jin family was hopeful. Tang Yang was also very satisfied. He could immediately change to the celestial scripture and his strength would have a linear improvement in a short period of time. Ling Han was also very satisfied. He unexpectedly obtained another part of the spirit map of destruction energy. Once he successfully cultivated it, his battle prowess would definitely increase by a large margin. There should be an herb garden and a pill room here, but I don't know how many of them are left after so many years, Jin Yeshua said with some emotion. The Jin family had once been glorious, ruling over dozens of planets, but now they were like dogs in water, not daring to reveal their identity. Thinking of Jin Yeshua's identity, Tang Yang couldn't help but sigh. Clearly, Jin Yeshua and the Meng clan were irreconcilable enemies. If he wanted to pursue Jin Yeshua, he would have to stand against the Meng clan. If he went back and told his family, his legs would be broken, and he would never see Jin Yeshua again. He could only pretend that the 2 of them had never met. The 3 of them plundered all the cultivation methods and precious techniques on the bookshelves. Although their value couldn't compare to the Muddy Heaven technique and Great Overarching Heaven Precious technique, there was no reason to leave them here to waste. Then they went downstairs and out the door. Just as they descended a few steps, they saw 5 people walking towards them. They were Nangong Qian and the others who had clashed with Ling Han and the others. This was really the case of enemies meeting and their eyes turning red. The green-clothed woman's eyes immediately turned red. She drew her sword and charged towards them. There shouldn't be any formations here, right? Unfortunately, there weren't any formations, but there was a stone Pishio. Half an hour had passed, and the blood left by Jin Yeshua had dried up. The stone Pishio had already returned to normal. It quickly rushed out and bit the green-clothed woman. After chewing for a while, it spat the green-clothed woman out. Junior sister. The other four hurriedly rushed forward, only to see that the green-clothed woman's wound that had been bandaged was bleeding again. The stone Pishio didn't kill, and the injuries it caused were very light. However, the green-clothed woman was already heavily injured, and after being tossed around like this, her wound naturally reopened. Tang Yang laughed. Come, all 5 of you come at me together. I can take you on alone. The green-clothed man took out the statue again, causing the expressions of Ling Han and the others to change. This Dharma artifact's destructive power was shocking. They hurriedly retreated back into the building, but the green-clothed man didn't care at all. Whoosh, a ray of light shot out and hit the building. With a bang, a corner of the building was blasted open. What made Ling Han and the others depressed was that the stone Pishio didn't move at all. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Every once in a while, a ray of light would shoot over. In a few moments, the entire building was on the verge of collapse. What do we do? Tang Yang frowned. Later, split up and run, said Ling Han. There was no hope of fighting. First, the other party had 5 cast cauldrons, and second, there was that terrifying Dharma artifact. Only Tang Yang could resist it for a while. Miss Jin and I are cast cauldrons, so we can run. But what about you? Tang Yang shook his head, disagreeing with this plan. When it comes to running, I can still compete with cast cauldrons. Ling Han was full of confidence. Tang Yang looked at him in disbelief. Boom. The entire building was collapsing. Rubble fell, and dust flew everywhere. Jin Yeshua couldn't help but urge them. You two don't need to look at each other so affectionately. What's your decision? Hurry up. Let's go. Ling Han didn't give Tang Yang any chance to hesitate. He rushed out first, activating so close, yet worlds apart. His speed was astonishing. Damn. Tang Yang couldn't help but stare. Ling Han's speed wasn't much slower than his. You take the rear. Jin Yeshua also rushed out. Haha, Grandpa Tang is here too. Tang Yang used his movement technique, but he deliberately slowed down. He had a secret treasure to protect himself, so he had to absorb a wave of attacks first to create an opportunity for Ling Han and Jin Yeshua to escape. Nangong Qian and the others also didn't expect the 3 of them to run like this. But after a moment of shock, the green-clothed man immediately used his divine sense to say, Junior Sister Wu, you go after the foundation building cultivator. Junior Sister Nangong and I will go after the cast cauldron cultivator. Junior Brother Qian and Junior Brother Zhao, go after the woman. Okay. The other 4 nodded and chased after their own targets. His distribution was very reasonable. Ling Han was the weakest, so even if the green-clothed woman had lost an arm, it wouldn't be difficult to take him down. Tang Yang should be the strongest, and he had a defensive secret treasure on him, so he needed to use a powerful killing weapon to break through it. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Everyone used their movement techniques, and their speed was very fast. Ling Han didn't fly. The entire Jin clan was protected by a formation, so he couldn't fly to a place that was too high. Otherwise, he would immediately be attacked by the formation. He just ran on the ground, using each house to shake off the pursuers behind him. But the green-clothed woman had suffered twice, and she had even lost an arm. This hatred was absolutely irreconcilable. She chased after Ling Han relentlessly, determined to take him down. Although Ling Han's so close, yet worlds apart was fast, it was still limited by his realm. After running for a dozen or so minutes, his opponent gradually caught up. Die. The green-clothed woman slashed out with her sword. Shua, a sword light shot out. It was entwined with frost energy, and it was extremely cold as it chased after Ling Han. Ling Han humphed. Without even turning his head, he shot out a punch. Peng! The force of his punch landed on the sword light, and was instantly slashed apart. However, with this obstruction, the sword chi also slowed down for a moment. In the end, it did not catch up to him. Reading on a mobile phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3792. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Cece. When the green-robed woman heard this, she immediately became spirited. Her broken arm was actually not the fault of Ling Han and the others. Although it was also because of them, when her waist was smashed, it was completely because of Ling Han. Now that she heard that Ling Han was still here, she couldn't help but become spirited. She brandished her sword and was about to rush in, but she had already suffered, so she immediately stopped and asked Nangong Qian, "Senior Sister Nangong, the formation here has been broken." En. Nangong Qian nodded. The green-robed woman no longer had any misgivings and rushed out with her sword. With her 4 senior brothers and sisters overseeing things, she naturally had no fear. But when she rushed into the pill room, she saw nothing. "He slipped away," she said hatefully. The other 4 naturally followed her in, but they couldn't help but reveal looks of disappointment. It was obvious that this place had been ransacked, and there wasn't a single good thing left. Damn it! The black-robed man pressed down with his palm. He was currently filled with anger. How could he not vent it? Boom, boom, boom. He continuously struck out with his palm, naturally hitting an empty place. But on the 7th palm strike, a figure actually appeared out of thin air and rushed towards him. This was really too sudden. The black-robed man completely didn't expect that he had just casually struck out to vent his anger. How could a person appear in such a hurry? He also had no way to increase his strength, but a cast cauldron was still a cast cauldron. In such a critical moment, he still took out a triangular shield and protected himself. Bang! Ling Han's fist landed on the opponent's shield, causing him to slide back a few steps. He didn't continue fighting and directly rushed out of the door. Nangong Qian and the others were stunned for a moment before they reacted. That Foundation establishment brat. Chase. So he's still here. The treasures in the pill room must have been taken by him. Maybe there's even a cultivation technique. Take him down. The 5 of them became excited and hurriedly chased after him. The green-robed woman's face was filled with killing intent. Her current hatred for Ling Han far exceeded her desire for the treasures. She only had one thought, and that was to kill Ling Han. Ling Han had no other choice. He had hidden himself well, but that man in black suddenly went crazy and sent out a flurry of palm strikes. Just now, if he had not made a move, he would still have been forced to reveal himself after being hit by the power of the palm strikes. It couldn't be helped. He was only wrapped in the void beast skin, so he couldn't completely enter the void. Ling Han activated imminent skyline and flew all the way. Nangong Qian and the other 4 were in hot pursuit. At this moment, the difference in strength between them could be seen. The green-robed man and the black-robed man were faster and were rapidly catching up to Ling Han, while the other 3 were slowly closing the distance between them. "Hee, you won't be able to escape," sneered the azure-robed man. He hadn't expected that there would be a fish that had slipped through the net, and a big one at that. "Stand still obediently and hand over the cultivation technique and elixirs. If you do that, I might even grant you a quick death," the black-clothed man said. Ling Han ignored them. These 2 just wanted to disturb his state of mind. Naturally, he would not fall for their tricks. "Then don't blame me for being impolite." The azure-robed man took out the statue. "Senior brother," the black-robed man hurriedly called out. They had to capture him alive, and the destructive power of this light pillar was too terrifying. They didn't want to destroy both the medicinal pill and the cultivation technique. "It's fine. I'll just aim at his legs." The azure-robed man grinned, revealing a bloodthirsty expression. The black-robed man nodded. As long as the person didn't die and the treasures didn't break, it was fine. The green-robed man immediately began to activate his spirit tool. His eyes shone with white light, and it was at this moment that a frightening mental attack struck him, causing him to involuntarily feel an indescribable fear. Shio, the beam of light shot out, but it completely lost its aim. The black-robed man was given a fright, because this light pillar was now shooting towards him. "Senior brother, what's going on?" he roared. With his cultivation, if he was struck by this light pillar, even if he didn't die, he would be heavily injured. The destructive power was too terrifying. The azure-robed man came back to his senses. He was somewhat at a loss and said, "I don't know who attacked my knowledge sea just now, but it caused me to lose focus." "Senior brother, it's that brat." The green-robed woman transmitted her voice from behind. "He has a spiritual attack technique that is extremely difficult to block." "So that's how it is." The azure-robed man sneered. He waited for a moment, and when he recovered, he once again activated his magic tool. But this time, he used his telekinesis to protect his knowledge sea and formed a secret shield outside his body. He hadn't even launched his attack when the baleful aura attacked him again. So what if he had set up layers upon layers of defense? He still couldn't completely block the baleful aura attack. He only felt a pain in his head and his attack involuntarily flew out, deviating ridiculously. This brat is so F***king hard to deal with. He couldn't help but roar. This foundation-building cultivator was too terrifying. His speed was comparable to that of a cauldron-casting cultivator, and under his frequent attacks, his junior sister had thrown away her armor and fled in a sorry state. If such a person stepped into the cauldron-casting realm, just how terrifying would he become? "Kill, I must kill him today." His murderous intent became extremely firm. "There is no need for all of you to follow him. All of you spread out to every corner. This place is only so big, and we will definitely be able to intercept him," he said. The black-robed man and the other three nodded and spread out at the same time, going in different directions. Only the azure-robed man was still in hot pursuit. As a result, Ling Han was under a lot of pressure. As he ran, there was a possibility that someone would suddenly appear in front of him and launch an attack. Such a sneak attack might even be an expert of the cast tripod realm. The more the situation was like this, the calmer Ling Han was. He fiercely rushed back and put on a posture of fighting with the azure-robed man. "Haha, what a fool." The azure-robed man sneered. "I am at the heaven tripod realm." Naturally, he wasn't afraid. He took the attack head-on and kept the statue's magic tool. Instead, he used a rod. As he swept, endless energy boiled and turned into a dazzling brilliance. There were runes everywhere, and its power was unimaginable. Not only was he a heaven tripod, but he was also a silver tripod. His combat strength was much higher than a bronze tripod of the same grade. Without hesitation, Ling Han took out the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda. Streaks of primal aura descended and waited for him. The lightning flashed and shot towards the azure-robed man. Buzz! The baleful aura attack hit first, causing the azure-robed man to pause for a moment. Then, with a thought from Ling Han, the heavenly pattern jade also shot out. His feet circulated near, yet worlds apart, and the demon monkey fist wrapped in destructive energy followed closely behind. In just a single exchange, Ling Han had already revealed almost all his trump cards, except for the Heaven Dao Flame in the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda. Bang! The baleful aura attack hit, but the azure-robed man was already prepared, and the impact on him was negligible. Just as the heavenly pattern jade was about to hit, a piece of brocade cloth appeared in front of him. PFFF. The heavenly pattern jade smashed onto it, but it was wrapped by the brocade cloth and couldn't be torn apart. Instead, it was trapped in a net. The end of this chapter. Cell phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3793. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han charged over, the light of lightning exploding, and the demon monkey fist also swept over with destructive energy. Haha, how courageous. The azure-robed man laughed coldly. He was at the heaven cauldron tier. No matter how monstrous his opponent was, a mere foundation establishment tier cultivator was no match for him. He put away the brocade cloth and swept out with his staff. Ling Han activated his eye technique, and his feet moved. He actually broke through the azure-robed man's staff shadows. What? The azure-robed man was startled. His sweep had not been done casually, It was a type of staff technique. Although it was just a sweep, it was filled with dense energy, as if a large net had been spread out. Under such circumstances, his opponent had actually been able to seize that tiny opening to rush out. His eyesight was far too profound. But there was no time for him to sigh with emotion. He hurriedly abandoned his staff, clenched his hands into fists, and charged at Ling Han. As the saying went, the whip was too long to help. At this moment, the staff was too long to help. Now that his opponent had closed in, the staff was unable to turn around. Boom! Their fists collided, and terrifying energy collided. Ling Han was unsurprisingly sent flying, crashing heavily into a wall. A large hole was blasted open, and he continued to fly backwards. After crashing through 7 walls, Ling Han finally fell to the ground. He felt as if all the bones in his body had been shattered, and he could not move a single finger. But there was no time for him to rest. He hurriedly forced himself to his feet, took out a void beast skin, and put it on. He concealed his figure and quietly left. Xiao, the azure-robed man, had already rushed over. He stared at the place where Ling Han had fallen, but there was no trace of Ling Han now. Not good, he had escaped. He was filled with hatred, and he wanted to vent his anger with a random attack, but he suddenly discovered that there was a kind of energy on his fist that was corroding him. What was this? He was shocked. Although this energy was weak, it was incomparably tenacious. He had already used his secret power to expel it, but he had not been able to completely remove it, and it was still wreaking havoc on him. Although the damage was not very great, it was like maggots in his bones, and it was extremely annoying. Just how many secret techniques did this brat know? The azure-robed man's eyes were filled with greed. The Dharma tools that his opponent had used and the fist techniques that he had used were all wrapped in mysterious, high-level energy. If he could obtain them all, just how powerful would he become? I will definitely find you. He sent out a signal to summon Nangong Qian and the others. Where is he? The green-clothed woman immediately asked. I let him escape, the azure-robed man said. However, I also injured him. Since he was injured by senior apprentice brother, how did he manage to escape? Asked the black-robed man suspiciously. As soon as he finished speaking, Nangong Qian and the other 2 turned their gazes over. The green-robed man's face sank. You don't believe me? Hee. The black-robed man smirked coldly. He was very suspicious that the black-robed man had kept the treasures for himself, and then lied and said that Ling Han had escaped. The green-robed man took out the heavenly rune jade and said, that Foundation establishment brat attacked me with this telekinesis magic artifact, so I had no choice but to dodge. That's why he slipped away. You know that kid has a way to hide his tracks. That's true. The other 4 were skeptical. This sounded reasonable, but only the green-robed man knew the truth. Junior apprentice sister Nangong, please guard the door. You know formations and won't let that brat slip away. The green-robed man started assigning tasks. The 4 of us will form groups of 2 and continue searching for that brat. This distribution was reasonable, so the 4 of them nodded and believed it for the time being. They once again split up. They were determined to find Ling Han. There were many houses in this place. Ling Han casually entered a house, closed the door, and found a corner to sit down. He hurriedly drew out an alchemical pill and swallowed it. In the last strike, he fought with the green-robed man, breaking several of his bones and severely injuring his internal organs. His injuries were quite serious, and he needed immediate treatment. I can barely match the enemy's cauldron. Heaven Cauldron's attack injured me. Ling Han shook his head. There was nothing he could do about it. The gap between him and Heaven Cauldron was too great. He was already lucky to be able to escape. The heavenly rune jade is in the enemy's hands. I have to get it back, murmured Ling Han. The problem was, how? Unless I break through to casting cauldron. Ling Han took out the elixirs he had obtained from the pill room and opened them one by one to identify them. Many of the pills were already deformed, turning into a paste, sticking to the bottom of the bottle. Naturally, a lot of the medicinal effects had also been lost. This bottle should be for breaking through. The original effect should be enough for the truth self realm. Right now, It should only be able to help foundation forging and foundation forging. This is for raising cultivation. Too much of the effect has been lost. It should be just right for my current level. I'll break through here and settle the score with those 5. Ling Han wasn't one to suffer losses. How could he not be angry after being chased by Nangong Qian and the other 4? He dug out some paste from the bottle and swallowed it. This was an elixir that could raise cultivation. A moment later, he felt his stomach heat up as if it was about to burn. Vigorous energy surged within his body, as if it could topple mountains and overturn seas. Damn, I miscalculated. Although the effect has been weakened, it's still beyond my current level. I've already eaten it. I can only endure it. Ling Han gritted his teeth. The energy in his body was too terrifying, and he felt like he was about to explode. He even felt like his body had doubled in size. Of course, this was just an illusion, but it also showed how shocking the energy in his body was. He couldn't control it at all. Ling Han could only circulate the Sky Ancient Yang scripture to convert this energy into secret force to strengthen his immortal Dao's foundation. The energy rampaged. His bones and internal organs had already suffered heavy injuries, and he had just barely managed to reattach them. However, with such an impact, they were instantly broken again. So bitter. Ling Han endured the pain and did his best to absorb the energy in his body. Only by enduring the medicinal effect would he be able to recover. Half a day later, the medicinal effect finally stabilized. Ling Han was panting heavily, cold sweat rolling down his forehead, mixing with his blood. He had really lost half of his life. Now, his whole body was like a pile of mud. There was not a single bone or muscle in his body that was intact. But his cultivation had advanced a lot. He hadn't suffered for nothing. Using this kind of method to rapidly increase my cultivation level, the price is my own life. Ling Han sighed with emotion. Though the medicinal effects were rich and contained a large amount of energy in itself, it was a destructive method that could allow his cultivation level to advance by leaps and bounds. It was definitely consuming his future lifespan. Ling Han didn't regret living for a few more years, but what was the point of living like a coward? As a man, he should be able to repay kindness and enmity, and laugh proudly at the world. I can't stay here any longer. Ling Han murmured. He had already stayed here for so long, and the 5 would definitely take their time to find him. He needed to find another place. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3794. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han walked out of the house. Not long after, he saw a man in a green robe and a woman in a green robe walking side by side from a distance. He quickly hid in a corner and suppressed the blood flow in his body so that the blood wouldn't flow and expose him. Fortunately, the 2 of them were searching the houses one by one and didn't pay attention to the roads. Ling Han took the opportunity to move and quickly moved. Not long after, the man in a green robe and the woman in a green robe found the place where Ling Han was hiding and found a large pool of blood on the ground. Found it. This guy is really seriously injured. Unfortunately, we are still a step late. It's all right. Now that the door is guarded, he is just a turtle in a jar and will fall into our hands sooner or later. Let's go. The 2 of them continued to chase. This time, Ling Han didn't go into the house. Instead, he found a dense forest, dug a hole, and buried himself in it. Anyway, he was already at the Foundation establishment realm and didn't need to eat or breathe to live well. He suppressed his injuries and took a little more medicinal paste. This time, he really only took a little bit. The energy in his body boiled again, but this time, it was still within a controllable range. In just an hour, Ling Han completely absorbed the medicinal efficacy, and his cultivation improved significantly again. Ling Han kept taking the medicinal paste. He was now filled with an evil aura. He must break through the tripod casting realm and settle the score with those 5 people. The next morning, Ling Han didn't take any more medicinal paste. Instead, he faced the morning sun and breathed in and out the heaven and earth essence. This was something that couldn't be found in the medicinal paste. Then, He continued to take the medicinal paste and continued to cultivate. Logically speaking, even if it was a tonic, one shouldn't take it continuously. The resistance to the medicine was secondary, and medicine was 30% poisonous. Taking too much of it would only be harmful. But now, Ling Han didn't care about it and only wanted to improve his cultivation. If he took it continuously, the medicinal efficacy would naturally be weaker each time. But this medicinal paste was originally very powerful, and even though it was reduced by a lot, it still had a great effect on Ling Han. Of course, the disadvantages were also very obvious. After the accumulation of the medicinal toxins, not to mention the effects it would have on his body, at least for a short period of time, there would be no effect if he took other medicinal pills. 5 days later, Ling Han had already pushed his cultivation level to the peak of the foundational level. His injuries were also mostly healed. In these 5 days, he would move around at night, leaving bloodstains in different rooms, creating the illusion that he had been healing inside the room all along to confuse Nangong Qian and the others. It's time to attempt the forging cauldron. I've already tried. Even with the suppression of the imperial weapon, the life force in my body is not enough to withstand the shockwaves from 3 immortal foundations. Therefore, forming 4 immortal foundations is impossible. In fact, most people only have 1 immortal foundation, but I have 3. This is already inconceivable. I've broken the impossible twice. Now, I will attempt the casting cauldron. The star web is truly a good thing. As long as one is willing to spend money, a forging cauldron-grade life fruit will immediately be delivered to their doorstep. Ling Han didn't eat the fruit of life right away because he had only reached the peak of the foundation establishment realm and hadn't found the opportunity to break through yet. He laid down on the ground and became one with the earth to begin his enlightenment. From foundational to cauldron forging, it sounded simple. It was to turn the immortal foundation into a cauldron. However, the transformation of form was only a representation. The real change was the leap of life. Ling Han released his divine sense and became one with the earth and the sky. Images surfaced in his mind. It was the scene of the bolder ancestral king's enlightenment in the past. Ling Han didn't obtain any of the monarch's techniques, but he did obtain something more valuable. The difficulties and crooked paths the monarch had to go through during his breakthrough. It was as if an almighty cultivator left behind a cultivation manual. It was extremely precious. From this, one could see how generous the monarch was to selflessly pass down his experience to his descendants. What Ling Han saw was the monarch's repeated failures, so there was no need for him to continue. 2 days later, he didn't emit any aura at all. It was as if he had turned into a corpse. However, inside his sea of knowledge, an extreme change was brewing and was about to happen. The 3 immortal foundation stones were undergoing a change. They were evolving in the direction of the cauldron, and Ling Han's body went from a deathly stillness to surging with astonishing energy. 3 cauldrons appearing at the same time. Ling Han didn't feel anything himself, but if outsiders saw this, they would definitely be shocked beyond belief. How were the minor realms of cauldron forging divided? It was simple. It depended on the number of immortal cauldrons. 1 cauldron was the human cauldron realm, 2 cauldrons was the earth cauldron realm, and 3 cauldrons was the heaven cauldron realm. But now, Ling Han was going to forge 3 immortal cauldrons at once. Didn't that mean he had skipped the human cauldron and earth cauldron stages and directly entered the heaven cauldron realm? Was there such a breakthrough method? But was there a second person in the world who could form 3 immortal foundation stones during foundational building? The impossible miracle created even more impossibilities. Boom! The energy of heaven and earth surged over. Originally, it couldn't be absorbed unless it was early in the morning, but now it surged into Ling Han's body of its own accord, replenishing his mystical power reserves and accelerating the transformation of his immortal cauldrons. Swish, swish, swish. Nangong Qian, the green-robed man, and the others all rushed over. The scene here was too shocking. The endless power of heaven and earth gathered here. As long as one was a cultivator, it was impossible not to notice it. Is there a supreme treasure coming out? The black-robed man's face was full of expectation. When such a phenomenon happened, it was usually the birth of a supreme treasure. Moreover, didn't they see that all the energy was gathering underground? Of course, the secret treasure came from underground, which was reasonable. The green-robed man muttered, after obtaining this treasure, it's about time for us to leave. Otherwise, we might encounter a powerful enemy. Tang Yang and Jin Yeshua had escaped, and it was very likely that they would summon experts. Moreover, this island had surfaced, and as time passed, it would definitely attract people. Thus, they couldn't stay here forever. After all, they weren't from the Azure Dragon Empire, and they didn't want to be wiped out. Treasure. They all gathered around, wanting to dig up the earth for the treasure. Although Ling Han was at the critical moment of his breakthrough, his martial arts instincts were still there. He sensed the auras of the 5 people and immediately burst out of the earth. What treasure is this? Sacred medicine? That's very likely. Otherwise, how could it be humanoid? The azure-robed man and the other 4 were all excited and rushed forward. The green-robed woman's face was especially flushed. If she could obtain the panacea, she would be able to regrow her arm. What? Damn. However, they soon saw clearly that this was not some holy medicine, but that foundation establishment stage. Why is it you? The green-clothed woman was extremely disappointed. To her, even the sage's inheritance couldn't compare to her healthy body. Haha, we've finally found him. Capture him and let's hurry up and leave. The azure-robed man laughed. Mobile reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3796. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC, what are you celebrating? Tell me, so that I can be happy too. Ling Han's voice traveled over. The 5 people's cheers came to an abrupt halt, and they looked at Ling Han in disbelief. How was this possible? He had taken a blow from an artifact, and yet he was not injured at all. They could not help but tremble in fear. What kind of monster was this? Why could they not kill him? Ling Han smiled slightly. The stone statue's attack was indeed very strong, and even a heaven cauldron would not be able to withstand it. However, it was still far from reaching the level of a life core. If one had to forcibly compare it, it would be equivalent to 4 or even 5 cauldrons. However, Ling Han had broken through to 3 cauldrons. Although he had not completely mastered each cauldron, and he was a multi-star genius, his battle prowess should be equivalent to 5 cauldrons. Thus, this attack from an artifact was indeed something that he could not underestimate. However, it was not difficult for him to use his full strength to neutralize it. How is it possible that you are not dead? The green-clothed woman said through gritted teeth. Because I am strong, Ling Han said indifferently. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of the green-clothed woman. With a flick of his finger, a gust of wind swept past, and fresh blood immediately burst out of the woman's forehead. Her knowledge sea was instantly shattered, and she died completely. Die. The green-clothed man hurriedly handed the artifact to the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man immediately activated the artifact, and a beam of light shot towards Ling Han. However, Ling Han shattered the beam of light with a single punch. He charged over, and his fist smashed towards the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man hurriedly took out his triangular shield and blocked in front of him. Peng! The fist smashed into the shield. The shield could not withstand it at all, and it sank at a terrifying speed. Ka. The sound of bones being crushed and broken rang out. The triangular shield had already been completely sealed on the ground, and there was fresh blood flowing from the surrounding area. Nangong Qian and the other 2 people were so frightened that their faces turned deathly pale. So what if they had a defensive artifact? This person did not use his fist to attack, but had directly smashed down in the most barbaric manner, crushing them into a meat patty. What kind of shocking strength was this? The 3 of them didn't even have the courage to risk their lives. The difference in strength was too great. They were not on the same level at all. Ling Han frowned and said, "Attack. I don't like to kill people who don't fight back." When the 3 of them heard this, their eyes lit up as if they had found a chance to live. All of them straightened their backs and looked like they were ready to die. Ling Han flicked his finger. Blood immediately blossomed from the green-robed man's forehead. Then, his body tilted and fell to the ground. His face was still filled with an expression of disbelief. Didn't you say you wouldn't kill those who don't resist? Just because I don't like him doesn't mean I won't kill him, Ling Han said calmly. Damn, are you kidding me? This was too much of a scam, too sinister. Nangong Chen and the red-robed man hurriedly raised their lowered weapons again and aimed them at Ling Han. However, they could not stop their bodies from trembling. Their hearts were filled with despair. How could there be such a freak? He had clearly just stepped into the casting cauldron realm, yet he could kill a sky cauldron realm expert with a flick of his finger. Do you have any last words? Ling Han asked. I promise I won't tell anyone about what happened today, and I will never come to Moonlight Planet again. Please spare my life, the red-robed man said as he lowered his head and begged for mercy. Ling Han was unmoved. If it was a swap, and Tang Yang or Jin Yeshua begged for mercy, would the other side let them go? No, he wouldn't. He punched out, and powerful energy roared. His fist turned into a heavy hammer, and a large number of runes exploded as it smashed toward the red-robed man. The red-robed man roared and swung the large blade in his hand. Pu, the heavy hammer struck, and the large blade in the red-robed man's hand was instantly knocked away. The remaining force did not dissipate, and it continued to crush him. The fist force crushed the red-robed man, and he died completely. Ling Han looked at Nangong Chen again, his eyes cold. Nangong Chen hurriedly threw away the weapon in her hand and knelt on the ground. I am willing to submit to you. What use do you have? Ling Han asked calmly. I'm an array master, and I'm proficient in arrays. Ling Han shook his head. Unfortunately, I'm also an array master, so I don't need it. Haha, you're too arrogant. Nangong Chen suddenly retreated, and at the same time, she waved her hands, causing lines to light up on the ground. You didn't notice, did you? I was actually setting up an array just now. Ling Han smiled. With your array skills, this little bit of time is not enough for you to set up an array, so you must have set it up long ago. Let me guess, this array isn't actually aimed at me, but at killing your fellow sect members so that you can take the treasure for yourself. Nangong Chen's expression changed. Ling Han had guessed correctly. She had discovered that a treasure was about to appear here, so she had quietly set up an array nearby. Once the treasure appeared, she would kill the green-robed man and the others. In any case, it was normal for people to die while searching for treasures in ancient ruins. She had never thought that Ling Han would be able to guess it with just a single guess. So what if you've guessed it? The array has already been set up. Just wait for your death. Nangong Chen sneered. Ling Han smiled, and said, all right, then let me see just how powerful the formation you've set up is. He summoned the primal chaos Polaris Thunder Tower, and it floated above his head. The aura of primal chaos descended, and he seemed invulnerable. Ling Han stepped forward, and suddenly, a burst of flames soared from the ground, burning towards him. Earth core flame. Ling Han shook his head. It can't really be considered an earth core flame. At most, it's just the outer flame of the earth core flame. It's too weak. When this flame encountered the aura of primal chaos, it was directly suppressed and extinguished. He continued forward, and an ice arrow condensed in the air, shooting towards him. Shoo, after one, dozens more formed. Ding, 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 ding. These ice arrows struck the aura of primal chaos, but they were unable to penetrate it. Following Ling Han's advancement into the casting cauldron, this monarch armament that he had cultivated with his life had naturally advanced to the 2-star level. It was also the most powerful 2-star mystic artifact. It couldn't be helped. Who asked it to be forged from Mother Gold? Nangong Chen's face became paler and paler. She had deliberately set up this array with the intention of killing all of her companions. She had never thought that in front of Ling Han, it would not even be able to break through his mystic artifact. Don't be sad. This mystic artifact is forged from Mother Gold. As a future monarch armament, it should be invincible among its peers, Ling Han said lightly. What, a monarch armament? Nangong Chen's heart jumped. No matter how brave she was, she had only dared to guess that it was a saint artifact. She had never thought that it would be even more advanced. An ultimate mystic artifact forged from Mother Gold. No wonder it was so awesome. She gritted her teeth, turned around, and ran. But she had only taken 2 steps when she saw that there was another figure in front of her. It was Ling Han. After advancing into the casting cauldron, Ling Han's speed had naturally increased by another level. He could even compete with a life core tier elite. Nangong Qian's beautiful face was deathly pale. Ling Han had already revealed the secret of the monarch armament, so how could he possibly let her leave alive? Taking a step back, even if she did not know that it was a monarch armament, Ling Han would not allow her to reveal the secret that she possessed a saint artifact. She sighed, and slapped her palm towards the top of her head. She had chosen to commit suicide. Cell phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3797. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han was emotionless. Defeating an opponent of this level was not enough to make him excited. Was there a need to be so happy? However, he was extremely satisfied with the harvest this time. A good cauldron, a venerable level technique, and a spirit diagram of destruction energy were all extremely precious. He searched the corpses of the green-robed man and the others. Of course, he had to take back the heavenly pattern jade. Also, the stone statue artifact was quite high-end. He estimated that more than 90% of the cauldrons could not withstand its attack. As for the rest, there were only a few Dao stones. Ling Han sighed ruefully. With the star web, robbing had become much more difficult. He went to the herb garden to take a look. Unfortunately, this place had not been taken care of for a long time. Most of the celestial herbs had withered, and only a few were still alive. However, the fruits that grew were far from mature and could not be used as medicine. Ling Han could only give up helplessly. Forget it, let's go. After Ling Han left the Jin residence, he flew on his artifact and flew to the imperial capital. He traveled day and night, and after 5 days, he returned to the imperial capital. His cultivation had advanced a level, and his speed had naturally increased by a level. He had already contacted the Empress and the others on the star web. Therefore, after returning to the imperial capital, he went to find Tang Yang first. "You're finally back." After seeing him, Tang Yang was relieved. "Don't you have a star web account? Hurry up and register one so that it will be easier to contact." If it was convenient, Ling Han would have become friends with Tang Yang on the star web, but that would expose the secret that he was the number 1 under the stars. At least for now, Ling Han did not want the other party to know his identity. He laughed and deceived this matter. "How are you getting along with Jin Yeshua?" He quickly changed the topic. Tang Yang's face immediately darkened. "How can it be? It's very difficult." This was the truth. Even if the two of them were in love with each other, the chances of them being together based on their backgrounds were not high. Moreover, Jin Yeshua might not even like him. Ling Han patted his shoulder and did not say anything. He might have hit it off with Tang Yang, but he still couldn't instigate Tang Yang to rebel against the Azure Dragon Empire. "By the way, why did you only come back now?" Tang Yang asked. Because this involved the previous dynasty, he could not report this matter. Otherwise, if they found out that he might have received the Jin family's inheritance and had an unclear relationship with the descendants of the Jin family, he would definitely not have a good time. He might even implicate the Tang family. Ling Han smiled. "Haven't you noticed that I've broken through to cauldron forging?" It's true." Tang Yang slapped his head, his face full of shock. "How long has it been? You've already broken through? Impressive, right?" Ling Han laughed. "Amazing," Tang Yang said sincerely. Then, he smiled and said, "Don't tell me that after you broke through, you showed off your power and killed all those guys." "What, can't I?" "Hey, firstly, you have just broken through. Secondly, they have 5 cast cauldrons. Thirdly, they have a great killing weapon that can instantly kill all cast cauldrons. Tell me, should I trust you?" asked Tang Yang. Ling Han laughed. "Come, let's have a spar." "Forget it, I don't want to bully you." Tang Yang shook his head. He was a heaven cauldron cultivator. "All right, I won't bully you. I'll use one hand," said Ling Han. He put his right hand behind his back, then stretched out his left hand and slapped at Tang Yang. Heh, you're really confident. Tang Yang smiled and also pressed his palm towards Ling Han. In his opinion, a heaven cauldron against a human cauldron would definitely be crushed. However, his expression immediately changed. Damn, this is a human cauldron. How could there be such a powerful human cauldron? He hurriedly activated the power of his divine body. A ball of flames spewed out of his body, and complicated runes appeared. Peng, with a single strike, he was instantly sent flying, but Ling Han's power was withdrawn the moment it came into contact with him, so it naturally did not cause him the slightest bit of injury. You. Tang Yang was so shocked that his scalp went numb. Are you even human? You've just stepped into the cauldron forging stage and you're already so powerful. Even I was almost no match for you. Almost. Ling Han rolled up his sleeves. Did this guy want to be taught a lesson? Tang Yang hurriedly waved his hand. You just broke through. I don't want to bully you. Ling Han was speechless. He really didn't expect this young lord to have such a scoundrel side. You really killed all 5 of them? Tang Yang came over. This was too unbelievable. Ling Han took out the stone statue artifact and handed it to Tang Yang. Tang Yang had to believe it even if he didn't want to. This artifact was already in Ling Han's hands. Wasn't it enough to explain the situation? I rarely admire people, but when it comes to you, I only have one word: admiration. He was completely convinced, but he suddenly had a strange idea. Kid, hurry up and get a Star Web account. With your demonic talent, you are definitely in the top 10,000 of the cast tripod realm. The martial art realm was like a pyramid. The higher the cultivation level, the lesser the number of people. With the vastness of the universe, even if there were billions of Foundation Establishment realm martial artists, there would only be slightly more than 100 million cast tripod realm martial artists. Even if one could be in the top 10,000 of the 100 million martial artists, it would still be very shocking. In the Azure Dragon Empire, there were only 2 cast tripod realm martial artists in the top 10,000. As long as you can squeeze into the top 8,000, you will be the undisputed number 1 cast tripod realm martial artist in the empire. Seeing that Ling Han was at a loss, Tang Yang explained, right now, the Azure Dragon Empire has 2 martial artists in the top 10,000 of the Star Webcasting rankings. One is Xiong Zhao, who is ranked around 9,500. The other is Liu Yuan, who is ranked around 8,800. Ling Han shook his head and spoke with a righteous expression. I have no interest in the rankings. This was nonsense with a straight face, but Tang Yang believed it because he knew that Ling Han was also a genius alchemist. Who knows, maybe he would put his heart and soul into alchemy. Sigh. He couldn't help but sigh. If Ling Han made a name for himself on the Star Web, then as Ling Han's friend, Tang Yang would also feel honored. All right, I have to go back first. Ling Han waved his hand. All right, contact me again if there's anything. Tang Yang nodded. He was stimulated by Ling Han and decided to cultivate properly. After recultivating the turbid heaven scroll, the quality of his mystic power would definitely increase to another level, and he might be able to defeat Ling Han. That must be the case. When Ling Han returned home, the Empress and the others were already waiting for him. Once he entered the door, the 7 milk babies surrounded him, causing Hunyo to scream. You little turnips took up all the space, so how was she going to hug Ling Han? Move aside. Move aside. Ling Han belongs to Nyo. Daddy belongs to everyone. The 7 milk babies naturally wouldn't give up their hands. Childish, Tang Yuna said in disdain. She licked her lollipop with relish. Ling Han laughed loudly, feeling the warmth of home. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3798. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han taught the Armillary Heaven scripture to the Empress, Hunyo, and the large black dog. Although their current cultivation technique was more advanced, he still had to be prepared. If they advanced to cauldron casting but didn't have the corresponding cultivation technique to cultivate, what would they do? For example, Ling Han could only change to the Armillary Heaven scripture now because the ancient Yang Heaven scripture's foundation building chapter was no longer enough to support his continued cultivation. He decided to go into seclusion for a few days to fully comprehend the armillary heaven scripture and master the newly obtained destructive energy spirit diagram. Relatively speaking, the armillary heaven scripture was the easiest to master. Although it was created by a 4-tier elite and could be said to be mysterious and profound, Ling Han could even easily master a saint-tier cultivation technique, so it was naturally easier to master a venerable level cultivation technique. It didn't take much time for him to master the cauldron forging chapter of the armillary heaven scripture. After a comparison, the mystical power refined by the armillary heaven scripture was not as pure and thick as that refined by the ancient Yang heaven scripture, but there was no way around it. Who asked Ling Han to not have the following chapters of the ancient Yang heaven scripture now? He went to cultivate the destructive energy spirit diagram again. Strangely, this time the plane power in his body didn't circulate. There was no way around it, so Ling Han had to do it himself. These symbols were incomparably complicated, and they were simply inexplicable. It was as if they had been randomly drawn and were completely meaningless. If not, Tang Yang and Jin Yeshua wouldn't have repeatedly said they didn't understand. Ling Han used the destructive energy he had mastered as a reference and compared the symbols one by one. After 3 days of effort, he finally deciphered one symbol, which filled him with joy. This was an indescribable sense of accomplishment. He circulated the destructive energy and immediately found that there was a little more destructive energy. It was pitifully little, but it was indeed a little more. With every bit of destructive energy, the power would naturally increase correspondingly. Okay, continue. With the experience of his first success, it was much easier for Ling Han to decipher the remaining symbols. After another 2 days, he had grasped the second symbol, and after another day, he had grasped the third symbol. After another half a day, he had grasped the fourth symbol, but after that, he was unable to compress time any further. There was a slight improvement, but it was pitifully small. Ling Han remained in seclusion for a full 2 months before he was able to decipher all of the symbols. He stretched out his hand, and a rumbling sound could be heard as destructive power swirled around it. It was now twice as large as before. This was far from the ultimate form of destructive energy. Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless. Just what was the origin of this destructive energy, and just how terrifying was its final form? However, 2 months had passed. It was time for him to go out for a walk. Firstly, since he had stepped into the casting cauldron realm, he should refine some casting cauldron grade elixirs. But there was no hurry. He had taken too many pills in a short period of time, and there was still a large amount of medicinal dregs in his body. Eating it now would not have any effect, and it would only accumulate more pill toxins. Secondly, he had to pay a visit to the hostage mansion and heavenly marshal mansion. Going to the hostage mansion was of course to settle the debt, but in the heavenly marshal mansion, he was still a commandant. Holding a position in the heavenly marshal mansion, of course he could not be absent from work for long periods of time. Ling Han, Nyo will go with you. Hu Nyo pestered him. Woof, Grandpa Dog will reluctantly accompany you, the large black dog said very ostentatiously. If Ling Han was still at the foundation building tier, then he definitely would not volunteer himself, but this time was different. Ling Han was going to show off his prowess and slap faces, so he naturally had to join in on the excitement. Ling Han smiled. All right, let's go together. He brought Hu Nyo, while the large black dog followed behind him, heading towards the first origin mansion. They had not gone far when they saw someone walk over, pointing at the large black dog as he said, Ari, friend, this beast pet of yours is really interesting. It actually wears underwear, so particular. The large black dog flew into a rage out of humiliation, and immediately rushed up to bite. You're the human pet, woof, see if Grandpa Dog bites you to death. That person was only in the mystery-seeking tier, so how could he withstand the large black dog's bite? Instantly, he was bitten until he screamed endlessly. After this experience, the large black dog had a psychological shadow. He stood up on his hind legs and straightened his body. His 2 front paws were clasped behind his back, and he looked very imposing. Not long after, another person came over, and said, Brother, this beast pet of yours is quite interesting. It's even wearing diapers. Woof, woof, woof. The large black dog was greatly stimulated, and could not be held back no matter what. After walking for half an hour, they finally arrived at the first origin mansion. Ling Han stopped in his tracks, raised his head to look, smiled, and strode forward. "Yo, Grandpa Ling, you're back." The head of the guards just happened to come out, and upon seeing Ling Han, hurriedly jogged over. "Grandpa, you're really a nostalgic person, not forgetting to visit us old brothers." He looked at Hu Nyo and the large black dog, his eyes filled with envy. Look, only 4 months had passed, and he already had beautiful women as his companions, and even raised a beast pet. His days were really comfortable. Woof, what's with that look? The large black dog had suffered too many setbacks along the way, and thought that he was Ling Han's beast pet. Now, he was in a state of biting whoever he saw. Seeing the strange look in the head of the guard's eyes, he immediately bared his teeth. Ling Han laughed loudly, and grabbed the large black dog. This time, they were not here to stoop to the same level as the guards. They walked into the mansion, and very soon, the news that Ling Han had returned to the first origin mansion spread out. The hostages all came out to welcome him. Of course, there were exceptions, such as Liu Xuanyu, Zhao Xiao, and the others, who looked at Ling Han with eyes filled with hatred. Tan Zhengjie was Liu Xuanyu's lackey, and was the first to walk up. He said coldly, "Ling Han, you've really forgotten yourself with success. Do you think that just because you've been conferred an official position by His Imperial Majesty, you can strut around in front of us?" Ling Han sighed, and said, "You idiot, always unable to understand the situation." He moved, and struck out at Tan Zhengjie. In the past, when Ling Han was still in the foundation building tier, Tan Zhengjie was already no match for him, what more now that he was already in the forging cauldron tier. His hand rose, and his palm fell. "Pa!" Tan Zhengjie directly fell onto the ground. Ling Han smiled. "I'm not here to strut around. I've specially come back to beat you guys up." He extended his hand, and pointed at Liu Xuanyu, Zhao Xiao, and Han Bing. "All right, I'd like to see how you're going to beat me up." Zhao Xiao walked out, and took large strides towards Ling Han, brimming with confidence. He had recently obtained a breakthrough, and had already advanced into the Earth Cauldron tier. Thus, he was full of confidence. Ling Han. He was indeed monstrous. However, he had already advanced, and suppressing this brat would be as easy as flipping his hand. Advancing from the human cauldron tier to the Earth Cauldron tier was equivalent to a huge improvement from enlightening the apertures to seeking the mysteries. Thus, he had absolute confidence. "Obediently lower your head." Zhao Xiao had already neared, and his hand reached out towards Ling Han's neck. Ling Han moved, and similarly, he sent a slap towards Zhao Xiao. "Pa!" With a crisp sound, Zhao Xiao also fell onto the ground. F***ck instantly, everyone's eyeballs popped out of their sockets. Cell phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3800. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC Yang Lusheng spoke, revealing the mastermind behind the scenes. That person's surname was Ma, and his name was Ma Chiyun. He was one of the vice mansion masters of the Sky Marshal Mansion, a rank 5 official. But Ling Han had clearly never offended this person, so why was he being targeted? Yang Lusheng didn't understand this either. He was only following orders, so how could he dare to ask Ma Chiyun why he was targeting Ling Han? Oh, could it be that person? Ling Han suddenly remembered that he had once formed a great enmity with Meng Yangcheng, and Meng Yangcheng was also the crown prince. There was a 99% chance that he would attend Meng Yonghua's birthday banquet, so the other party would definitely know of his existence. To publicly kill a hostage of another nation, even the crown prince would not dare to act so recklessly. Moreover, Ling Han had just received a reward from Meng Yonghua. Whoever dared to touch Ling Han at this time would be equivalent to not giving Meng Yonghua any face. Meng Yonghua was a temperamental person, who dared to go against him? Therefore, Meng Yangcheng couldn't do anything to Ling Han on the surface. Therefore, he used underhanded methods and reasonably used the rules to deal with Ling Han. Thinking about it this way, things made sense. If a crown prince wanted Ma Chiyun to cooperate, would Ma Chiyun dare to disobey? Moreover, he didn't need to do this personally. He just needed to inform the crown prince and it wouldn't cost him anything. Therefore, Ma Chiyun would definitely be willing to help. Now that he knew who the mastermind was, Ling Han did not bother to waste time on Yang Lusheng, so he turned around and left. The large black dog smiled slyly, and stuffed all of the eels into Yang Dongsheng's pants. No! Yang Lusheng screamed, but with his cultivation base sealed, he couldn't move at all, nor could he circulate his secret energy. All he could do was let out a humiliating scream. Ling Han focused on his cultivation. His forceful breakthrough had left behind many side effects. There was nothing he could do about the damage to his life essence, but as for the other aspects that could be repaired, he had to do it as soon as possible. On the other hand, he continued to fight in the ranking battle on the star web. Of course, he was now at the caste tripod realm. In fact, he didn't give up on fighting Foundation establishment cultivators. After all, he just had to suppress his cultivation. He had challenged Shi Yi to a battle, and now he was also a forging cauldron. However, Shi Yi proposed 2 conditions. First, when they fought this time, Ling Han would definitely collect entrance fees, so he wanted half of it. Secondly, he wanted half of the ticket money from last time. Ling Han couldn't take it anymore. If he gave half of the ticket money to Shi Yi, wouldn't it mean that he had worked for nothing this time? Moreover, why should the money be split equally, but the notoriety should be shouldered by him alone? Ling Han decisively refused to accept. Instead, he challenged Myriad Daos and Heavenbreaker. However, the 2 of them seemed to have discussed it with Shi Yi beforehand and actually made the same request. F***CK, ganging up on me. Ling Han ignored him and started breaking records. However, even though he didn't have enough immortal tripod cauldrons, he was still recognized as a heaven tripod realm by the star web. Therefore, he was at a disadvantage. He didn't manage to break any of the records, even though he was only a little short. What's more, the caste tripod realm could be cultivated to the limit of 9 cauldrons, which meant that Ling Han was far from reaching the peak stage of the caste tripod realm. How could he surpass the strongest prodigy since the ancient times? He focused his attention on the pill recipe, trying to find a pill suitable for forging cauldrons. Soon, he found the corresponding pill recipe. It was called Cauldron Forging Pill. After taking it, it could speed up the forging of the immortal tripod. The price of this pill recipe was 3 million Dao stones, and Ling Han bought it without hesitation. However, although he had a lot of money on hand, he spent it quickly because he still had the Empress, the large black dog, and the others by his side. Moreover, if he used the time room, then no matter how much universe coins he had, it wouldn't last. So, he had to find a way to earn more money. He couldn't just sit and eat. He went to the Saint Medicine Hall. There was naturally a large amount of medicinal ingredients there. As long as he was willing to spend money, and with his current status as a human-grade low-level alchemist, there was naturally no medicinal ingredient that he couldn't buy. As usual, he first transferred the money to Hu Niu, and then used Hu Niu's account to make the transaction. This way, the secret that he was the strongest under the stars would not be exposed. He began to concoct pills, and the new pill furnace naturally had a place to use it. These days, Ling Han didn't stop studying it, and was already familiar with how to use it. From the perspective of alchemy, this was even better than the chaotic extreme thunder tower, because the flow and suppression of the energy of heaven and earth was really too smooth. After only failing 3 times, Ling Han managed to concoct the casting cauldron pill. Unfortunately, he still couldn't take it now, because the resistance in his body was too high. In order to earn more money, he sold foundation forming pills in bulk on the star web. Don't look at this as the lowest grade celestial pill, but there were many people who were willing to pay a high price for it, and the price was far above the casting cauldron pill. At that time, when Ling Han had bought this pill recipe, it was precisely because of the economic benefits it could bring. Unfortunately, the peaceful life didn't last long. Ling Han was summoned by an official document, and he was asked to go to the troop selection ground tomorrow. The official document didn't explain what was going on, but Tang Yang arrived very quickly. "Come, let's fight first." This guy immediately dragged Ling Han to the martial arts arena. Otherwise, if they fought in the city, The destructive power of the casting cauldron would be too great. Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless. After being defeated by him, this young lord seemed to be holding back a wave of energy. Fine, I'll help you. The two of them went to the martial arts arena. Tang Yang immediately asked for a combat room, and the two of them began to fight. Tang Yang's first move was a powerful one. His entire body was covered in flames, and runes revolved around him. He was like a god of fire as he charged out. Ling Han couldn't help nodding inside. After cultivating the celestial body scripture, Tang Yang's strength had become much more condensed. The power of his attack was at least 4 times stronger than before. But in front of Tang Yang, this wasn't enough. Ling Han decided to give Tang Yang some face and began to fight with him. After 100 moves, he finally found an opportunity and attacked Tang Yang's weak point, defeating him. I still can't beat you. Tang Yang sighed, but his eyes were filled with excitement. Previously, he hadn't been able to take a single blow from Ling Han, but now he was able to exchange over 100 moves. It was obvious how much he had improved. You didn't let me win, did you? What do you think? Ling Han smiled. I did. Tang Yang was a bit nervous. Haha. Did you win or not? Haha. Ling Han didn't directly answer the question. After returning home, he asked, You didn't come here just to fight me, did you? That's one reason. Tang Yang smiled. You received the summons, right? Yes. Ling Han nodded. I was just about to ask you what's going on. Something big happened. Tang Yang lowered his voice. The Shadow Moon Empire suddenly attacked Venus Rich. This is our most important resource planet. It is rich in all kinds of precious metal ores. The materials for our army's weapons and armor are all obtained from Venus Rich. If Venus Rich is occupied, then we'll lack important supplies. This war will really be difficult to fight. First, set a small goal for yourself. For example, bookmark. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.